theme this month has been prayer. And as we start to close out the month here, you know, I typically go from the more personal to the more global as the month goes by. And I do that for a reason. I say all the time that it is important, I think, for spiritual communities to marry the micro and the macro. That too often what I find is that there are a lot of communities that focus on the inner realm, and they're going really, really deep, but sometimes so deep, almost like inertia sets in. You know, we used to say growing up, people are so heavenly bound, they ain't no earthly good. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for that. That there's a place to have people who are monks, and that's what you do. You know, you're up on the Himalaya somewhere, and you're holding it down. You know, somebody got to do that, for sure. And then you have a lot of groups that are busy doing the social activism, the change. You know, they're out there, they're all the rest of that, but there's no peace in their own hearts. You know, they're coming from places of anger or rage or whatnot, and they're so busy trying to make something happen, but they're not grounded, not spiritually grounded in the very vibration that they're trying to bring forth. What we see at the collective level is just the micro supersized. I want you to get that. There's nothing happening at the big level that's not happening at the small inner level. It's just that supersized. So when you look around and see what's happening on the political front, don't get mad at the people at the top. They're just the ventriloquist. They're just the big visible ventriloquist for whatever it is that's happening at a lower level or a more microscopic level. Okay? So you can't change things at the big level that you don't change at the inner level. You can work on symptoms. You can work on side effects. But if that's all that you're doing and you're not dealing with the underlying consciousness, it'll just morph. It'll just look a different way. You know, how many people have gone into recovery for one thing, but didn't do the underlying healing, so it becomes something else? I got some witnesses in the house. Some hands went up. Okay? So I'm trading one addiction for another addiction because it really isn't about my substance of choice. That's not what it's about. It's about the underlying behavior. And if I don't, the underlying issues, the behavior just is whatever is convenient at that time. So whether it's drugs or alcohol or workaholism or, you know, any of the other things that we get into, control is another form of addiction. Power is another form of addiction. If we don't heal the underlying stuff, we're just going to keep doing it all over again. So our brave thing that we try to do here at Inner Light is to work on both ends. To work on both ends. To so work on our own healing stuff so much that it compels us. It compels us to do something else. And similarly, for so many of us who are activists, we're environmentalists, we're social justice change agents, we're this, that, or whatever, that we're not just running around doing stuff, that we're actually grounded in something. And this is our niche, so to speak, within this broad spiritual milieu of stuff that's out there, is standing at this crossroad of the marriage between the two. There are, in my humble experience, there are fewer people who will either consider, let alone trust, prayer for global issues. They don't even think about it. That prayer gets relegated to the individual, like the personal level. I may pray about my own financial situation, but it doesn't even occur to me that prayer is going to do something about the national debt. I may pray for the prayer in the conflict that's going on in my own family, but I won't even think about prayer as being something that might be useful for some kind of international global conflict. You know, I may think of it for my own health, but I'm not thinking of it about world AIDS. And I don't know what that cutoff is. I don't know in people's individual minds that point where they think, oh, beyond this, prayer doesn't work. Beyond this, it's all on us. You know, this is too big for God. Certainly, we would do a better job if we figured it out. I don't know. And you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and I don't know what that is. I really don't. And I do find that sometimes there's people who are on the complete other end, where in their minds they're chanting and they're oming and they're dancing around, and they can see, oh, the beauty and the harmony and the interconnectedness of all sentient beings. But their sister, I don't think so. Their ex, their mama, can't make it over that hurdle. Can't make it over that hurdle. Now, I can see the oneness for everybody, but my own heart can't quite get there. Can't quite get there. So there's some of us who can see it in the small and can't apply it to the big, and there's some of us who can see it in the big, but we can't knock it down to the small. It reminds me of a song I wrote. This was years ago when I still lived in Los Angeles. It's a rap song, and the opening line is, "Well, I love humanity. It's people I don't like." And it's kind of like that. We've got this thing for all of humanity, woo, but people. And I remember the spirit letter, and I talk about it from time to time. You know, I get these spirit downloads. And sometimes they just stop me cold, and I have to breathe on it for like a couple of weeks. This letter was explaining, it said, "Reverend daughter, you keep thinking that people are getting in the way of your spiritual path." It said, people are your path.
Yes.
Let that sink in for a second.
Yes.
People are your spiritual path. If you think about all that meditating and stuff that people are doing to go deep, it's not about nature. People aren't having problems with the earth and the sun and the ocean and the wind and all the rest of that, that if there's any clutter or whatnot in the heart, oh baby, somehow people have had something to do with it. The stuff we got to work through involves people. So just breathe that in for a moment. We develop spiritual muscle. And it's interesting, to develop muscle strength, there has to be some tension that goes against it. Okay, listen to what I'm saying. To develop muscle, there's got to be some tension that goes against it. So a lot of the things that are really there for our good, so that we can develop some spiritual muscle, we're busy praying to get rid of. The stuff that's really there for our spiritual muscle, we don't want to go through it. We want to go over it. Or we want it to get out the way. But we don't want to be inconvenienced by it. Are you with me? I used to listen to Terry Cole Whitaker a lot, Reverend Terry Cole Whitaker, back in the 70s and early 80s. And she told this story once about this friend of hers who was a surgeon. And he had the bright idea that when these baby birds were being born, his hands were so delicate, he was going to help them. But they all died. Every last one of them. Because what he didn't realize was that pecking out of the shell and this stretching thing that the chick had to do to get out of the shell was the strength that it needed to make it in the world. Are you with me? Okay. The chick had to make its way out of its own shell. And helping it out of the shell didn't help it. Because it had to develop the muscle to get out of the shell itself. So obviously I'm using this as a metaphor. Okay? So when you apply this to your own life, how many of those circumstances in your life can you look back at now and see you needed to peck your way out of there? You needed to flap your little wings and break that shell so that you develop enough strength to make it. Are you with me? Collectively, too many of us are waiting for that surgeon. We want somebody to come, open up the egg, and let us just boom, pop out as a society. But collectively, we have to do the same thing on the big level we got to do on the little level. We got to peck our way out of the shells. We have to stretch our muscle. We've got to stretch our wings so that we develop the strength to be able to make it. The so-called tests in our lives are there for our testimonies. The so-called trials and tribulations are there for our triumphs. That's how we get conviction. The conviction, con, with, the root of that viction is victory. We get conviction with victory because we've been able to overcome this thing and this thing and this thing and that thing. So what I want to invite us to do, take a breath. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Somebody's cell phone just went off with the GPS system. It's so perfect. Because I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm going to weave it into what I was about to say, but ooh, I can't let that go by. Prayer is like a GPS system. You're never lost. Amen. With the big satellites out there, you know exactly where you are. And if you miss a turn, you may think you're lost, but you're not lost. Are you with me? What happens? You make a wrong turn, what is it? Reroute. 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 We are constantly being rerouted. And it doesn't matter because it keeps adjusting. So if you keep going past where you were supposed to go, it keeps rerouting. Like it keeps rerouting. Are you with me? It like keeps doing that. So think about that. Think about that. That GPS system is always on. We're just not listening all the time. It doesn't turn off or on. We tune in or out. It doesn't turn off or on. It's always on. We're not always listening. And it doesn't matter how far away you get, it will just keep rerouting you. It'll go from make a U-turn, and if you keep going too far down, it's catch the freeway and come back. The world, the nation is not lost. We're not lost. We didn't just happen here. We didn't just happen here. So I've had a wonderful opportunity over the past couple of weeks to be working on some really, really good projects at very high levels. And I particularly like the discussion that we had at 1440 Multiversity last Monday. And I was on this panel with Lynn Twist and some other people at this Women's Empowerment Summit. And there were all these female business leaders, primarily entrepreneurs. And I love what my associate Conda Mason said. Conda is one of the founders of Oakland, Hub Oakland. And she said, the system's not broken. The system's not broken. The system is doing exactly what the system was designed to do. Do you feel that? System's not broken. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. We just need a new system. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. If you're in a relationship, it could be anything. It could be couples counseling. Maybe it's you and your child. It could be almost anything. But you can't try to fix a relationship. You have to create a new way of relating. Are you with me? You really can't fix relationships. You can't go back. You can't go back and recreate something once it's injured. You can't go back and recreate it even if it's not. Because life is evolutionary and it's always moving forward. No two snowflakes are alike. There's always going to be new leaves on the tree. This body that you have now is not the body you had 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago. It may look similar, but it's not the same one. Are you with me? So can you imagine for a moment if your approach around healing with this interpersonal relationship, this close-in relationship, was not so much how do we figure out what went wrong, what do we have to go back and fix, who's at fault, who needs to change, who was right, who was wrong, where are all the amends going to come from, how are we going to fix this mess? What if we started from the standpoint of there's a divine right relationship between me and this person now? And what does that look like now? This is not a get out of hell free card. Trust me. You won't get to skip through anything that needs to be healed. But you'll be on a new foundation. See? You'll be on something that's lasting and that can go from here. Then whatever it is that needs to be healed or shifted or changed so that it can accommodate this new, that's what will happen. Parenting, I think, is a good model to sink into what I'm saying. You can't have the same relationship with your kid at 17 as you did at 7. It's just not happening. It's not. And you can try everything you want to try, but everybody's changed. Are you with me? And to have that new relationship, It's not just that they've changed, but if you want to continue in a relationship with them, you have to recalibrate. And how many of us are pissed that the other person changed? And we want to somehow heal this relationship with us not changing, mad at their change. Who got quiet now? Or vice versa. Life is in session. Life is in session. It's always morphing. It's always shifting. So our prayer needs to always be current. Be in right relationship every step of the way. The Hindus say you can't step into the same river twice. I remember when I was on the Amazon rivers, on the borders of Ecuador and Peru, with the Pachamama Alliance. And we would be in these canoes, because there's no roads or transportation or that kind of stuff. The water, the boat, that's it. So we're in these big, long canoes, and there would always be somebody at the front who would be the lookout. Because the river was never the same. Are you with me? There are sometimes you may get to a point, this thing has shifted, the water's too low now. You might have to go a whole day around just because you can't get through right there. Are you with me? It's like that reroute thing. You can get there, but you can't just plow through straight like you thought you were going to go. I know sometimes when I'm listening to my GPS, I'm thinking, well, that's weird. Why am I taking this left and this left and this left? Oh, there was a one-way street there. Oh, that wasn't a through road. Oh, there are all these things there that I could not see. Are you with me? But I'm just plowing through, and what we know is that the shortest distance between here and there may not be the best or the safest when you're traveling. The shortest distance. There might even be some obstacles in between the shortest distance, like some buildings that you have to go around. But if we're willing, what I'm talking about here is a humility. If we're willing to surrender this idea that I know, that I've got it, or on the other end, nobody's got it, and everything's just running amok, that somewhere between I got it and nobody's got nothing is the truth. There's a divine order there. There's a divine wisdom. And our job through prayer is to listen and recalculate. To listen and recalculate. Most of us think of prayer as yakking at God. It would be like turning on the GPS system and saying, I want to get from A to B, and then giving the GPS system the directions. You put in the directions, and just when I get there, tell me. Just read out to me when I get there. And you're laughing because that's what we're doing. We're praying, and then we're giving the universe, we're giving God the directions. And the destination, and all of the other stuff. Take me around the tolls. Avoid the freeways. like do this, do that. No. No. As a society, we have places to go and things to do. We cannot heal what we do not feel. We cannot heal what we do not feel. And for the more progressive types that are really pissed off at what's going on and what's happening now, we've prayed this moment in. We've prayed it in. Every time we've prayed about healing, every time we've prayed about transformation, every time we have prayed about growth, that means we have to go through everything that's going on and happening that's preventing it. There's also the backlash. Listen to what I'm saying. There's the backlash. So as upset as all the blue folks are now, that's how upset the red people were 8 years ago. Listen to what I'm saying. Just as fearful and just as upset. The first time that Barack Obama was elected, the nation ran out of bullets. How many of you knew that? I'm not making this up. We ran out of bullets to sell. That's how scared people were. That's how scared they were. And what I'm saying here is that there's some place beyond this divisiveness. There's some place beyond. Somebody was describing it to me yesterday. We were talking about this at this event that we had here yesterday. And we were talking about this divide that's always been here in our political scene between the coasts, where you get a lot of influx of cultures and traditions, and they're all into diversity and newness and change and all that, against the heartland, the middle, the Bible Belt, and like the South, that's more landlocked in and much more into, tradition, and much more conservative. And they said that they heard it described as this, that for people on the coast, it's the flyover zone. That they never go to. They don't go to Nebraska. They don't go to Mississippi. They're not going to Ohio. They're they're bypassing. They're like flying over. Are you with me? And the other folks are never going to these other places either. Can you have a vision that puts everybody in it? So that when you pray, it's not just this little myopic, my world, make this work, give God the directions, I want to get from here to there, get me there as quick as you can. Can we step back for a moment? Just like with the relationship stuff, and say there's some place that we need to go. Not just me, not just a progressive person. How in the world can I help these conservatives get over it? No. There's something that happens at the heart space from engagement. There's something that happens from the heart space, from the oneness. There's something that happens there. This may seem like a really weird example, but it's fresh on me because I just saw a new episode. So I discovered about a week or so ago there's a spin-off of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. There's a new version now called just Queer Eye. And it's another 5. It's another 5 gay guys, like the Fab Five, Fabulous 5. And they remake straight men. That's what they do. They're people who are candidates, and these 5 gay guys remake these straight guys. Oh, do they? Okay, because I haven't seen any of those yet. Everything and they involve all their family, their friends, their jobs and whatnot. Somebody nominates them for a do-over. Okay, and it's everything. It's everything from fashion to your design, like your house space, your cooking, like all these social skills, all this stuff. So you get to see these interactions. And it is just precious because most of in these first episodes are happening in the Deep South. These burly guys. And to see these loving relationships being developed between these people by being together, and it's hysterical. And there was one episode in particular where the guy that was being made over was a police officer. And in this Fab Five, one of them is a black guy. And the way that it starts off is you see the Fab Five in this car, and all this is on Netflix. You see this in the car, and they're talking to each other about what they're going to do. So this cop comes up, and the black guy is driving. This cop comes up and stops them. And you can tell this is real. This is not staged. And all the reactions that's going on. And the cop is being like a little bit like on the harassing side, step out, do this, do that. And the guy's like, I don't have my driver's license. It's like, why? Because he says, well, we're filming this thing. Like, well, what are you filming? And I couldn't believe he told him. He says, we're filming Queer Eye. And it turns out the cop was the guy who was the friend who nominated him. And the brother was like, dude, you had my heart like dying here and whatnot. And he basically everything but called him an a-hole. I mean, it was like, are you kidding me? So then the cop gives him an escort, like to the house and all the rest of that. But it set him off on a bad note. And there are these wonderful conversations between he and the guy that's getting the transformation. And he said, I want you to know that after that happened, I wasn't so feeling it, like doing a cop, like over making a cop, if that's like how you roll, and all the rest of that. And it was this beautiful exchange. It was just the two of them in the car. And the guy that was being made over apologized. Not just for that, but he apologized for some of the stuff that happens with his colleagues. And the black guy was just in tears. He said, that's the first time I've ever heard that, where it wasn't just the blue shield. Everybody, surrounding each other, and like protecting each other. And there was just this incredible moment where both of them were admitting how far they had come as a result of this relationship with each other. Are you with me? The transformation that we're looking at the big level happens at these little levels. It's like it starts there. And if you're willing to open up your heart, if you're willing to heal, if you're willing to be part of the big global transformation and just pray to be a part of that, I guarantee you the circumstances and the conditions will open up for you. You will find yourself in the most unlikely places. You will find there's stuff that's happening for you. For you. That'll be so far off the bell curve, so to speak, you'll know this has your name on it. So if we can elevate it from just God make me safe, that's what I'm saying, God make me safe, bring to me what I want, when I want it, how I want it, where I want it, and with whom. So I'm going to step back a little bit. And I'm going to put my life on the altar to be of something of service bigger than myself. Why am I really here? For what purpose? When I was born, I didn't know all this stuff I'm trying to get from you now. I didn't know all that. For what purpose? And if you put yourself in that big mix, it says, somehow I'm a part of humanity. And it's not an either or. It's not the world wins or I lose, or I win or the world loses. No, we all get to win. Can you stretch your mind to imagine that? That there's a big win-win for everybody. Everybody. Not some people over other people. My spirit letter just recently said, my reverend daughter, your job is to win people over, not win over them. Your job is to win people over, not win over them. Prayer is not for the faint-hearted, but it's a heck of a journey that I highly, highly recommend, because it will take you to those places and spaces where you can stretch those wings, get the spiritual gym going, and come out all lean and mean and spiritually buff, and not be so mealy-mouthed and know, hey, God and I can handle this. We got this. Let's pray. Let's pray.